Welcome to Simply Debbie Sue's Southern Whispers. Step into a world where front porches hold secrets, faith carries folks through the hardest days, and the mountains whisper stories only the heart can hear. I invite you into tender moments, gentle humor, and the kind of Southern warmth that feels just like home. Welcome in, folks, to another Friday and another story. So let's get into the introduction of this week's story. Some folks build walls so high you think they were trying to keep the whole world out. But sometimes all it takes is one small act of kindness repeated faithfully to slip through a crack in that wall and warm a heart that's forgotten how to be soft. This is the story of Mrs. Hartgrove, the most stubborn woman in Willow Creek, and little Benny Carter, a boy with pockets full of hope and a heart that refused to give up. This story is called Peaches for Mrs. Hartgrove. Mrs. Hartgrove lived alone in a weather-worn white house at the end of Willow Creek Road. Her porch sagged, her curtains stayed closed, and her voice, when she used it, was sharp enough to slice through a quiet afternoon. Folks said she wasn't mean, just set in her ways, but her ways didn't leave much room for company. Little Benny Carter lived 3 houses down. He was 7, freckle-faced, and always smelled faintly of sunshine and creek water. His granddaddy owned a peach orchard, and Benny spent most summer's mornings helping gather the ripest ones. One day, while carrying a basket home, Benny passed by Miss Hartgrove's house. She was sitting on her porch, arms crossed, staring at nothing in particular. Her face looked like it had forgotten how to smile. Benny stopped. "Morning, Mrs. Hartgrove." She didn't answer. He held up a peach. "These are real sweet today." Her eyes flicked toward him, then away. "I don't need anything." Benny shrugged. "Okay, but I'm going to leave one on your step anyway, just in case." He placed the peach gently on the porch and skipped off. Mrs. Hartgrove stared at it for a long time. She didn't pick it up until the sun dipped low, and even then she snatched it up quick, like she didn't want anyone to see her accepting kindness. The next morning, Benny left another peach, and the next, and the next. Mrs. Hartgrove never said a word, but Benny noticed the peaches were disappearing. Sometimes they sat for hours, but they always vanished by evening. One day, Benny saw her open the door just a crack, look around, and snatch a peach like she was afraid someone might see her. He grinned. "She likes 'em," he whispered to himself. A week later, a summer storm rolled through, the kind that rattles windows and makes the sky look bruised. Benny ran down the road with a peach tucked under his shirt to keep it dry. Mrs. Hartgrove was on her porch, watching the rain like it was an old enemy. "You're going to get soaked," she called out sharply. Benny hopped into her porch, dripping. "I brought your peach." She stared at him, thunder rumbling behind her. "Boy, why do you keep bringing me these?" "Because you look like you need something sweet," Benny said simply. Mrs. Hartgrove blinked. No one had spoken to her like that in years. "You don't even know me," she muttered. Benny sat on the top step. "No, ma'am, but I know peaches help folks feel better, and you look like you could use a better day." Mrs. Hartgrove's chin trembled. "People don't usually stop here." "I know," Benny said, "but I'm not people. I'm Benny." For the first time, Mrs. Hartgrove let out a tiny laugh, rusty, unused, but real. A few days later, Mrs. Hartgrove invited Benny onto her porch. "Sit a spell," she said, almost shyly. She told him about her husband, who passed away 10 years earlier, about her daughter who moved far away, about how loneliness had settled into her house like dust, making her feel brittle and forgotten. "I didn't know how to let anybody in," she whispered. "Didn't think anybody wanted to come in anyway." Benny swung his legs. "I wanted to." "Why?" she asked. He shrugged. "You look like a peach person." "A peach person?" "Yep. Somebody who needs sweetness but doesn't know how to ask." Mrs. Hartgrove wiped her eyes. "You're something else, Benny Carter." By late summer, Mrs. Hartgrove's porch had changed. The curtains were open. A rocking chair appeared. Flowers bloomed in pots Benny helped her plant. She started waving at neighbors. She started answering the phone. She even started baking again. Peach cobbler, of course. And every morning, Benny still brought her a peach, not because she needed cheering up anymore, but because it had become their tradition. One Sunday, Mrs. Hartgrove walked into church for the first time in years. Folks whispered in surprise. but she held her head high. Benny sat beside her, swinging his legs and grinning. When the pastor asked if anyone had a praise report, Mrs. Hartgrove stood. "I like to thank the Lord," she said, voice trembling, "for a little boy who reminded me that kindness still knocks, even when you stop opening the door." The congregation smiled. Benny beamed, and Mrs. Hargrove felt her heart bloom like a peach tree in spring. So the reflection of this story reminds us that kindness doesn't always need permission. Loneliness can make a person hard, but love can soften them again. Children often see what adults overlook, the quiet ache in someone's eyes. A small gesture, repeated faithfully, can change a life. Peaches may be simple, but in Benny's hands they became a ministry, a way of saying, "You matter, you're seen, you're worth sweetness." And sometimes that's all a heart needs to start healing. I hope you enjoyed that story this week, and come back next week for another one. May these stories that I have written wrap around you like a well-loved quilt. May they remind you that God is near, hope is steady, and joy often comes softly, like a whisper on a southern breeze.